Hello again. I hope you're all enjoying the Creative Services APAC event and have taken away some words of wisdom, some nuggets of gold from our amazing speakers. We've got so many more speakers presenting today, so please stay tuned and see what's to come. For now, I'd like to thank you for joining this tech session. Imagine if there was one tool that did it all. I'll be talking about how we at Schneider Electric overcame many challenges to effectively and efficiently manage creative services. So let's start from the beginning and look at the goals we were trying to achieve and give some context as to why we had to very quickly embrace digital tools in order to be successful. In my opinion, the very existence of creative services is really to calm the chaos. Now, in order to calm the chaos, we need to introduce consistency in the way we operate. Let me give you an example. In order to deliver content for Schneider Electric in the most efficient manner, we have to have consistency, which reduces operational fragmentation. Now, simply put, that really means that everybody needs to do things the same way. It really is important to have that consistency for your planning process, for example. So the planning process for our business is done in the same way every quarter. And we all know that poor planning equals poor performance. We can't operate without knowing the strategic business objectives and how the business will be spending on the various campaigns, on the activation once they're developed. Otherwise, how would we prioritize? It would be who shouts the loudest, which, trust me, and I'm sure you've had it before, it just causes too many office politics to deal with. So with the consistent planning process, we need to tie this planning process of what the business needs into resource and allocation. So how do we measure what level of support each area of the business receives? And how do we track how that allocation of resources is being utilized? So talking of allocation, talking of planning, talking of resourcing and monitoring usage of the allocation, how do we ensure that we have consistent briefing documents? The business must use consistent briefing documents so that the creative teams are familiar with what's going to be coming in so that they can digest easily. Can you imagine that if briefs were coming in all shapes and sizes from in different platforms are answering different questions? I guess the same is true for timing plan. How do we keep timing plans consistent and then measure productivity from those timing plans? One of the goals is increased productivity equals financial efficiencies, but we've got to be careful that we need to balance that with well-being. Finally, how do we communicate effectively and efficiently with everything that we do? Email is becoming so last century and really sucks our productivity. So how do we communicate and collaborate on projects? How do we collaborate openly on the creative briefs that are coming in? How do we provide central feedback on digital proofing? Where do the digital proofs come from? If only we could have all of that planning, allocation, resourcing, monitoring usage, briefs, timing plans, and throw in a bit of an automation in there in one tool. I've got some very, very good news for what we use at Schneider Electric, because one does exist. But before I dive into the solution, I really want to explain a little bit about why this is so important for Schneider Electric. So for those who do not know Schneider Electric, it's a very large MNC. Our stakeholders are all clients, as we can call them. They're in different hemispheres, they're in different countries, they're in different offices. And now, obviously, with the new way of working, some are in the office and some are working from home. I'm sure you can identify with that. In addition, our internal agency network is based all over. So we've got a creative team, internal creative team in Poland, in Hong Kong, and in Boston. And they cover Europe, Middle East and Africa, North and South America, Asia and the Pacific, and then the rest of the world. And it's the same really with our agency network. They also have a global presence. So you can see as the map is building, this is where the green is where our stakeholders and our internal creative teams are based. And the yellow and the blue are where our production teams are based. The head offices of. This is not an exhaustive visual, but it gives you an idea that we have so many people in so many different places around the world that we need something central in order to tie everything together. The other complexity that we've got is that the stakeholders or the clients that we work with, they don't all have marketing backgrounds. And when you're working with very many different talents, we need to provide an easy and simple solution, an easy and simple inroad to both our internal creative teams and our approved external agencies. And that includes our big global network of production agencies. We have all of the agencies, the major ones in this tool, so that our customers, for want of a better word, or our stakeholders or our clients have the same experience when they come to us, whether that's internal or external. It all looks the same, it all looks familiar. And the way we do that is through Adobe Workfront. So let me take you through how we utilize Adobe Workfront as the one tool that fits all, by taking you through our process and workflow. This probably looks very, very similar to what you're facing, the way you work, starting with resource. So we look at how many creatives we've got. They are all in Workfront, and their total output is also in Workfront. So we have a number of creatives, say their annual output is 1,400 hours a year, taking into consideration holidays, sick leave, and also having a percentage of time dedicated to not working, to when people go on training, etc. So we're looking after the well-being also with the output. So the resource is in Workfront. Now, the allocation that we give to all of the businesses is also in Workfront. The allocations are based on the business needs and then the business financial contribution in the countries to the global campaigns. Now, with planning, we've really focused on planning in the last, I'd probably say 12 months. We hold quarterly planning meetings with the business. We take their plans, and because they're not experts in Workfront, they put their plans together in Excel. What we used to do is have somebody to take all of that input from Excel and manually populate all of the briefs in Workfront in order for the business to be able to go in, input their brief, and then send it through to traffic for triage. We've just recently worked with Fusion, which is the automation software. We have an expert in the team that can work with Fusion. And we've managed to, instead of uploading, say, 250 projects manually into Workfront, which takes a matter of days, we've managed to work with Workfront and the Fusion to upload approximately 250 pre-planned projects per quarter in the system in 30 minutes. So we've saved a huge amount of time there. So we've got the resource there, we've got the allocation there, and then we've got the business plans there of when they're due, all based on the financial commitments and the business objectives. Then we have traffic stepping in once the business has put their brief in, but even before the business has put their brief in, 2 weeks before the briefs are due in for triage, the system, again through Fusion automation, automatically sends a reminder to the stakeholder or the person who's briefing the job in that their brief is due in 2 weeks. They'll get a reminder 1 week before, then they'll get a reminder on the day, and then a week after to say, hey, your brief's 1 week late. Then 2 weeks after, hey, your brief is 2 weeks late. Third week, please remember, if you don't send us your brief in at the 4th week, it's going to be cancelled, so that we are constantly cleaning up the projects that are in the system if they're no longer required. And we also measure that as well. So we have a quarterly campaign council with the business to measure the late briefs that have come in, the briefs that have been cancelled, the briefs that have been moved on, just so that we can look for some optimization and efficient ways that we can change the way the business is doing things, or in fact change the way that we're doing things. Then we move on to timings and briefing. Assuming the brief comes in and it's a triaged by traffic and it's approved, the traffic manager then puts a timing plan together. Now we've got a pool of timing plans. They're automated timing plans. You either stick a date at the bottom that you need to hit, or you stick a date at the top that when you're going to start the project, and it tells you when it's going to come out. Phenomenal. I remember the days when I used to have timing plans in Word or Excel, and if anything changed, you had to manually go and change and calculate all the dates again. But in Workfront, we've got a set of timing plans that the traffic managers can pull up, change the dates, potentially change some of the tasks if it's a little bit different to what we've done before, and then it's uploaded into the system. The timing plan moves on automatically in places. It's triggered by a proof upload. And if it's not triggered by, so it can be either triggered by a proof upload or a brief upload, if we send a digital proof out, or the traffic manager or the project manager can move the timings on if there are delays. Now, all of the delays are recorded, so we can actually tell whether a campaign or an asset has been sat in creative for too long, it's been sat with the business for too long, it's been sat in QA for too long. And we can run reports on all of that, again, to look for and identify efficiencies. The other thing we use is the Workfront app. Now, we've got the Workfront app. It is connected to our Outlook account, and we have also got the app connected to our Teams. So you can't really miss any notifications. And this is especially good for people who are not in Workfront all the time. They use Workfront to brief, they use Workfront to look at the timing on their project, and they use Workfront to maybe put an update, give feedback, etc. They can actually subscribe, or they can just get the feedback straight into their Teams channel or Outlook, which is great for execs who are not going to be spending their time in the tool. Digital proofing is something else that we are working towards in Workfront. So feedback really on campaigns, on assets, they're either discussed in a review meeting, or for some simpler projects, the artwork can be actually marked up on the digital proof. And those markups are seen by everybody on the project. So you might have some conflicting feedback from different people. However, you can choose approval workflows so that all of the comments come in. You have an account manager, a project manager, filter them, and then send the relevant ones to the creatives to action. It's really an individual choice, and it's all very individual settings that you can set within Workfront about what notifications you get, what notifications you don't need, so it can be tailored to your preferences. The other thing I wanted to talk about was approvals and timing plan automation. So we already know that the timing plans actually move on depending on whose task it is at the time. So when you upload a brief to the project, the timing plan automatically says, hey, there's a brief in that folder. I'm going to change that to traffic. Hey, you need to triage this brief, which is fabulous. And then it goes on and on from triaging the brief to briefing the actual creative to having the feedback sessions, etc., etc. But once the back and forth has been done and the business approves the assets, they can mark the asset as approved, which again automatically sends a message to the relevant team member in the creative team or whoever's going to be finalizing the asset to output and asset manage. Now, another fabulous thing that we've been working on is a Workfront to our DAM integration. Now, we're talking about asset management. And when I say asset management, there is literally a button on the brief that says asset manage. If that is clicked, the automation we have worked on is that a record is created in our DAM, which mirrors Workfront, and the metadata automatically moves over. Now we are working towards the asset also automatically moving over, which will be genius and will save so much time. The final piece in the process and workflow are, and this is a really important thing that we need as a business, reporting and milestones. So we've got milestone data being collected in the background, again, to see the time the project has sat in each stage of the process. We can actually highlight where the holdups are. Our work in progress document is always on, always live, always updated, because if you think this tool never sits still, no matter where you are in the world, you can communicate with whoever in the world, whether they get the message in the morning or, you know, in their afternoon. It's just a living tool that really works well, not just in a global environment, but in a regional environment as well. We used to use Workfront way back when it was called AppTask for our creative team. And then we moved into the global organization, and now we use it and really enjoy it from a global point of view. So with the reporting, and this is especially interesting for the exec team, we can run reports on productivity. We can run reports on what the business has done, the time that they've spent, what briefs, as I said earlier, what briefs were cancelled, what briefs were delayed. We can also see who, from a creative point of view, from a people point of view, who is overloaded, and we can manage that. Who is light on, and we can give them work. And we can run reports to show that the allocations to the business are being utilised well, not so well. We can identify if they're not being utilised so well in a quarter. What does that mean? Does that mean that the business is spending money externally on agencies? Then we can look at that and say, well, how can we bring that either back internally or bring that work to the approved global agencies that we work with through the same methodology and in the same way? So we run burn reports to show how these allocations have been used in the next quarter. Quick snapshot of where we are at the moment. We've got 500, that's 359 projects in the system today. That's for our internal creative studios only, in various statuses, you know, current, with stakeholder, approved, waiting for asset management. It doesn't include the production agency work. This is also managed in the tool through Workfront, but the report that I've pulled only shows the internal creative work that we're working on today. So not only can we measure the internal metrics, we can also measure the metrics of the external agencies within the tool, because they work in the same way as our internal team. So that concludes this tech lab regarding Adobe Workfront, the one tool that really does it all. It does it all apart from make you a cup of tea in the morning, of course, which would be nice. So please remember to join our next amazing speaker, Jacinta Hauser. She is from Seven West Media, who is continuing on with the theme of tools for creating better creative workflow. So it'll be interesting to see what tools that Jacinta talks about. Alternatively, on track 2, you can join Adobe. And any questions that you have, feel free to reach out in the event platform. I look forward to seeing you very soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.